right, welcome everybody to the Week 5 Commish Report. I am Jamie Comrie here, and of course reporting on my league, the League of Shiva, and just want to go over some things real quickly. As we do every week, we'll talk about the week that was, and then we will preview the week to come, and also go over the standings at the end of the video. So first of all, just sports in general for the last week, especially for Boston fans, has been kind of an up and down roller coaster. Exciting, not so exciting. Not so exciting being that New England lost to Cincinnati 13-6, which was a debacle and a half. Don't even get me started on that. But the Red Sox win the AL East, and they're now up 2-1 over to the Tampa Bay Rays. And, of course, the NHL season kicked off last week, and the Bruins, my defending Eastern Conference champion Bruins, are off to a good start. So kind of an up-and-down week for me in sports in general. But let's get to the topic at hand, and that's Week 5 in the fantasy football world here in the League of Shiva. I took on my little brother Chris in what I call the matchup of the week. I actually wound up winning, and I pull off a 138-129 win over Revis and Butthead. And I have something to say about his name. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I managed to pull off a win, and it's my third win in a row, and I remain in first place in the entire league. But this matchup was more about just a win or a loss. It proved that if you smack talk too much, you can wind up opening mouth and inserting foot. So here's what happened. I'm about to watch the late afternoon games on Sunday, which were the Broncos and Cowboys and the Panthers and the Cardinals. So obviously my eyes were glued to the Broncos Cowboys game because I have Peyton Manning, and Chris and the Revis and Butthead team have Tony Romo going. So they're going up against each other in the actual match of the week, in the game of the week there, which was just an insane game. But before we get to that, I'm sitting down about to watch this game, and I get a text message from Chris, and he's starting his smack talk for the afternoon. He's saying that his prediction is that Tony Romo will outscore Peyton Manning, and that it would be the difference maker, and that he would win this week. Now, that's not exactly what happened. However, anyone saying something like that, as ridiculous as that, deserves to get what's coming to them. I mean, obviously, for those of you who have Romo, you know what ended up happening. But before I get to that, I mean, anyone who in their right mind who says that that Romo's going to outscore Peyton Manning, considering the season that Peyton Manning's had, is crazy. But anyways, Chris texts me that, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's on right now. But he texted me a bunch of times throughout the game as well, kind of just smack talking back and forth, and he started to get nervous when Peyton started throwing touchdowns all over the field, which is pretty normal. But then all of a sudden, all said and done, Romo winds up with 62 points and actually beats Manning in fantasy numbers. However, in a losing effort, loses 51-48 to the Denver Broncos, but he still puts up 62 points. 62 being, Peyton only had 54, by the way. Only 54, I know, right? But 62 is the second most points scored by any player this season in fantasy. And, of course, the person with the best performance of the year was Peyton in Week 1. So the funniest part was that Romo wound up losing the game to the Broncos 51-48, as I said, despite having over 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. So it turns out that all I had left was Danny Woodhead in the late night game on Sunday night in Oakland. And Chris still had the Texans defense and Andre Johnson going in the regular Sunday night game, which happened in primetime on Sunday night. For those of you who don't know, they had to play the Oakland game late because they had to convert O.Co. Coliseum from a baseball diamond into a football field from Saturday to Sunday. So it takes a little time to do that. So that's why they played at 11:30 at night. But so the 49ers crushed the Texans, and the Texans' defense only had 0 points. He got 0 points from the Texans' defense, and then Andre Johnson had only 3 points. So before Woodhead even played at 11:30 on Sunday night, Chris had a 1-point lead, 129-128. I got 10 points from Woodhead in that game, the late night game, putting me up 138-29. So all I had left to dodge, I was done for the week at that point. I had nobody on Monday night. The only person that Chris had going Monday night was his last player, which was in his swing spot, probably due to a bye week from somebody else. Excuse me, clear my throat there. Talking too much. But I had to dodge Harry Douglas. And by the way, who the hell is Harry Douglas? But he put up a big fat goose egg on Monday night, and I ended up winning 139 to 128. And so despite Romo's ridiculous performance, I still wind up pulling off my third win in a row. Excuse me here. My bad. But what it comes down to, though, is if it does not matter what your quarterback does if you have 5 of your 9 players with 6 points or fewer, including 2 players having 0 points. So I'm sure Chris is pretty pissed that he dropped this matchup on the heels of Romo living up to his outrageous prediction. But I'm sure he's happy. I sure am happy that it all turned out the way it did in the end. A win is a win. I moved to 4-1, and Chris falls to 3-2. So that brings me to the poop matchup of the week, which in this case is going to be the Nocho Cincos versus the Binghamtons. Nocho Cinco winds up picking up the win. That's my mom's team, 90-65. And this was one of those matchups where both teams had some bye week struggles and had to go with some mediocre players. Nocho Cinco had 4 players with 5 or fewer points, and Binghamton had 7 of his 9 players with fewer than 8 points, including Tom Brady, who only got him 5 points in that debacle of a loss against Cincinnati. Don't even get me started about the Patriots. Like I said, their Week 5 performance was really, really bad. I'm pissed about it. But with those kinds of numbers, however, it's inevitable that you're going to be the poop matchup of the week. The amazing part about this game, though, is my mother's Nocho Cincos win the matchup, and she had 18 points from her kicker, Matt Prater of Denver, and her 49ers defense got her 23 points. That was the difference maker. It was also her 2 best players in Week 5, so she snuck by with her second win in a row and of the season and moves to 2-3, Binghamton falling to 1-4 with the loss. In a desperation move, some other news here, Binghamton offered a trade to my Big Fat 77s, which I actually accepted. The trade was I gave him Rashard Mendenhall, and I got back Atlanta wide receiver Mike Williams. And so that was just kind of I have bye weeks coming up, so that's going to help me, hopefully, in the end. I haven't really played Rashard Mendenhall at all. But anyways, quick rundown of the rest of the matchups from Week 5 real quick here. The New Hampshire Madmen moved to 4-1, 156-100 over the Philly Cheesesteaks. The story of this matchup was Russell Wilson, Des Bryant, and Arizona's defense combining to get Dave's New Hampshire Madmen 87 points. That was by far the difference maker in this one. New Hampshire Madmen also got 20 points from his kicker, Mason Crosby, in that crazy Packers-Lions game on Sunday. And Philly Cheesesteaks had a great performance from Matt Ryan, who got 27 points, and he got 19 from Ray Rice, but it wasn't enough. They fall to 3-2, and then with the hot streak continuing for the New Hampshire Madmen, they move to 4-1. Also, the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros win 106-76 over the Mile High Social Club. It's a tough loss for Dan's Mile High Social Club as they lose their 4th matchup in a row after winning in Week 1. He couldn't get nearly the amount of production you would expect from guys like Marquez Colston, Jared Cook, and Trent Richardson, who combined for only 8 points for his team. Timmy's the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros win again and move to 4-1. Drew Brees got him a comfortable 23 points. Jordan Cameron only got him 3 points on Thursday night against the Bills. However, he held on to that lead for the entire Week 5 matchup. Dan drops to the basement of the league, which is also called the Sacco, and he's at 1-4 now. Wrapping up the week that was, the Hump Day Camels win 136-109 over the Doug Tatership. Doug's team, the Doug Tatership, didn't have a poor week necessarily. However, he couldn't dodge the huge performance that T.Y. Hilton had for Linda's Hump Day Camels. He was literally the difference maker in the matchup with 33 points. If you take his 33 points out of the matchup, she would have still won with the quarterback tiebreaker because it would have been tied at that point. But nonetheless, she picks up her 2nd win in a row and of the year and moves up to 2-3. We'll be looking at the standings in a minute, but this victory actually moved Hump Day Camels out of the basement and up 4 positions to 6th place overall in the league, which in this league is the final playoff spot. So a huge victory for them. Doug Tatership drops 3 in a row. and moves to 1-4 on the season. So here's what the matchups look like for next week. I set up the league so that you play every team in the league, in the entire league, once, and then you actually play each team in your own division twice. I do this to have an extra tiebreaker if needed to be crowned division champion. So we have our first rematch of the season coming up in Week 6. In this division matchup, John's struggling 1-4 Binghamton take on Dave's New Hampshire Madmen, who are nearly unstoppable right now at 4-1. They met in Week 1, and Binghamton was on the losing end of a 115-96 loss. Binghamton will be looking for redemption and their second win of the season to try and bounce back. Then we have a battle of the 3-2s in another division matchup. Revis and Buttheads, coming off of a tough loss to me, takes on Jeff's Philly Cheesesteaks, both at 3-2. And another division matchup with TG Timmy Gear's second-seeded 4-1, the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros, taking on Doug's struggling 1-4 Doug Tatership. If Doug wants to be in contention for the playoffs, he really needs to get a win against Timmy. My mom, Deb, takes her now 2-3 Nocho Cincos to a division matchup against a Sacco/basement 1-4 team, Mile High Club, owned by Dan. The Nocho Cincos will try to keep the Mile High Social Club in the basement with a win, and Dan will be trying to keep his playoff hopes alive. Then, the only non-division game happens to be the game of the household. My girlfriend Linda's 2-3 Hump Day Camels will be taking on my 4-1 Big Fat 77s. Nobody else in the league will have to put up with playing against their significant other at any point in the season, unless, of course, Chris and Jeff have something they want to tell us. But on paper and in real life, I think that my Big Fat 77s are unstoppable. And I'm sorry, honey, but you're going to be mowing the lawn next week. You're going down. Before we wrap things up, I have a league note to discuss. A grievance has been filed with the Office of the Commissioner. TG Timmy Gear, owner of that Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros. Man, I can't get that right any time of the day, ever. He has filed a formal complaint with me stating that Chris's team, Revis and Butthead, is a Googled team name and is fraudulent. If you Google funny fantasy football team names, Revis and Butthead comes on the second page that populates from the Google search. And also, I've been told by Timmy in another league that he plays in, there's a Revis and Butthead team there. And Linda has seen other people that have it. So TG is claiming shenanigans on this one, and Chris, saying that Chris needs to come up with an original team name and not Google it. Chris, the ball is in your court, so for any rebuttal in this situation, just let me know. Anyways, that does it for the recap of last week and next week's preview. So now on to the standings. So that's going to do it for this week's report. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you later. Okay, for the standings, in the Shiva North Division, there's a two-way tie at 4-1 with the Big Fat 77s and the New Hampshire Madmen. The tiebreaker going, of course, to my Big Fat 77s, thanks to the league leading 755 points for. Revis and Butthead and Philly Cheesesteaks are tied at 3-2, and Binghamton rounds up the division at 1-4. In the South Division, the Some Things You Can't Unsee Bros holding solely onto his first-place spot, second overall in the league, at 4-1. Hump Day Camels and Nocho Cinco both have won 2 matchups in a row and are now tied at 2-3. Mile High Social Club is tied with Doug Tatership at 1-4. However, the division wins have put Mile High Social Club in 4th place in the division, but the points for category puts him at 10th overall in the league. The biggest change in rank was Hump Day Camels moving up 4 spots to 6th overall.